Okay, today we are going to be working on this 1986 Kawasaki 454, also called the EN450. We're going to be doing a fork rebuild up front here. Pretty much anytime you do a fork rebuild on a motorcycle with these conventional style forks. Later bikes have an inverted style fork, but this conventional style fork, the experience is going to be just about the same. Essentially, we are going to need to remove the tank in order to lift the bike in the air. Once we've done that, we can remove the speedo cable, remove the front wheel, the front fender, and then drop the fork tubes out the bottom, and then disassemble them and replace the seals and replace the fork oil as well. Here to help me, we have Kirk today. Let's get to it. Alright, so we'll just remove the seat here. Two 10mm fasteners holding on this toolbox. And then we can just pull off the seat. And then a 10mm fastener holding on our tank. We have a little screw style clamp holding on the fuel hose here. Okay, and then we have a vacuum hose right here. And there's our tank. And we'll just use a ratchet strap here. Snug that there. And we have our shop crane here. Alright, so we need to remove our speedometer drive cable here. Yeah, just conventional pliers here to remove the speedometer cable. Okay, then we have a couple of 12mm bolts holding the caliper on here. Support the weight of the caliper with a zip tie. Nice and tidy supported out of the way there. Okay, so we have a 19mm on our axle shaft here. And this axle pinch bolt is a 12mm. And we'll just use a dead blow hammer on the axle shaft here. And four 12mm fasteners to remove the front fender. There you go. Okay. And the top bolt here is a 12mm. And it doesn't need to be removed all the way, just quite loose. And the bottom one here is 14. And that fork should come out there. This model bike has air-assisted forks. Essentially, there's a Schrader valve at the top here, which allows you to add compressed air to the top of the cylinder. We'll go ahead and remove the Schrader valve that's here with a valve core remover tool. Just kind of depressurize things here. The spec on this particular bike actually is between 0 and 5 psi, so it's not exactly important to have air in there. 0 being, I think, when you have a lighter rider, and when you add weight, go touring, something like that, you can add as much as 5 psi of air there. So when we reassemble this, leave it with 0 psi. Alright, we'll flip the fork over here. Okay, down in here we have a 6mm hex. Get our screw here. And there should also be a copper crush washer there. Here we go. Alright, so we'll dump our fork oil into this tub here. And next we need to remove the dust seal at the top of the fork here. Alright, there's the dust seal. Down in here we have a little circlip that retains the forks together. It also keeps that oil seal down in there. There we go. Alright, we should be able to force the upper shaft this way, and it should come apart from the lower here. There we go. At the top here we have our oil seal. Below that there's a little washer and a bushing collar there. So we just need to compare our old oil seal and dust seal to the new parts here. Just want to make sure that they're the same diameter, same thickness. Everything seems to check out with these. And our new dust seal there as well. When you're looking at the new parts, it's important that they get installed in the correct orientation. If you're looking at this seal, this is the upward facing side. If you flip it over, you'll notice that this outside edge is quite a bit thinner on the bottom side as it is on the top. And that's the way to tell there. And make sure everything looks clean, and we can go ahead with the reinstall. If you need to check or replace your springs, or if you want to do a very thorough cleaning, you can disassemble the top half of the fork here. Because we don't need to service the spring, we're just going to leave this intact. We'll remove this washer out of our way. Now we'll just insert the top half of the fork into the bottom and guide that bushing down inside. We'll add the washer back into the system and notating the orientation with that lip facing upward. We'll set that down in. And then we can use a piece of 1.5 inch PVC pipe, which has been smoothed out on the end. If you use a square end of this pipe, it does not fit fully down inside there. So we've taken a little bit of material off, just ground that down a little ways, and then it'll fit smoothly down in. And then we can just use this as a driver to seat that bushing. Alright, let me remove that washer so you can see what I'm referring to. And you can see down in here that that bushing is all the way down flush, and we were able to drive it down utilizing that washer and our piece of pipe. Next, our washer will go back on, and now we'll grab our new fork seal and a little bit of fresh oil there just to lubricate everything inside and out. And make sure you get the orientation of this correct. We'll just slide that on there. And we'll get it started by hand. You want to avoid the urge of utilizing a screwdriver to install the fork seal here. That's only asking for disaster. We're going to use this slide piece again, right over the top there, just to drive that home. And once you've got that started, you can actually take the old seal and toss that over the top, and that'll continue to help the slide process. Now we'll just use our screwdriver to pop the old seal off the top of the new one. There we are. And you want to proceed driving that seal down until you can see the lip where that snap ring fits into. Then we put on the snap ring down inside to retain the new fork seal. Here we have our fork oil. Fork oil is about as gray of an area as engine oil. Some people will prefer one thing and other people will prefer another. It's certainly a good idea to come to your own conclusions, but we can actually use ATF, or automatic transmission fluid, which has a function of about a 10 weight oil. If you look at some of the older service manuals for bikes from about this era, they actually suggest using ATF. Specifically, you want to use a Dexron style ATF. You don't want to use an F-type, which is usually for older Fords, things like that. So it's totally okay to use ATF. It's also okay to use some other brand, fork oil, 5 weight, 10 weight, 15 weight, whatever you'd like to use. Make sure you check your service manual for not only the quantity, but the weight of oil that you should be using. We're going to use this because I know it will work. And we're just going to use a syringe here to properly measure out. This bike needs 385 cc's of oil in each side of the fork leg. There's 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, and 385 cc's. And we can put our bolt with copper crush washer back in there. And we'll just snug this down again. I will just flip this over, and it should function like a fork again. Now we can put our dust seal back on there. that's essentially it for replacing the fork seals on a conventional style set of forks here. Be sure to clean everything really nicely before you put it back on the bike. Reassembly is essentially the reverse of taking everything apart. You do want to take note of a couple things though, and that's that the top of the fork tube should line up with the top of the triple clamps. Then you can go ahead and snug everything down nicely with the pinch bolts. And of course, once things are tightened, you can add the front fender back into the mix. The front fender lines up the lower halves of the fork tubes and keeps everything in alignment. And then you can add your front wheel and front axle back to the setup in order to keep everything tight. Then you want to add your front caliper and speedometer drive cable into the mix. And lastly, we needed to reassemble our tank and seat on this bike. Kind of depends on your machine. Overall, somewhat of an in-depth process which requires a number of tools. As always, check your service manual for specifics on your bike. In any case, I'm Miles, you're extraordinary. We'll see you next time. This video is sponsored by Ford Transmissions.